All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this one should be pretty quick. Half of it is already something we learned how to do in the last video. There is one example here that I did want to make sure to do, though, as it is a different type, and if you were having trouble with the study island and you weren't quite getting it due to a couple answers, hopefully this will answer any of the leftover things you might not have gotten. So maybe you can go back and pass the study island. Either way, here's the worksheet. Answers are already there. Let's go ahead and do the problems, though, right? So first two are going to be exactly like the ones from the last video. I'm going to go through them pretty quick. There is one thing I did want to point out, so let's go for it. All right, square root of 98, not a perfect square. Think about it. Square root of 100 is 10. So this is not far off, so it can't be a perfect square because the next perfect square is 81. So in between 81 and 100. So that means we do need to break it down. If you put in your calculator, you'll get an unending decimal. All right, now this is a bigger number, and as bigger numbers come, you might not know factors as well. Just take a calculator, see what you can do. With 98, you could divide it by 2. I'm pretty sure it's divisible by 4. No, 8 divided by... So you could definitely do 2. I don't think I did 2. I just want to make sure. No, I did not do 2. You could do 2. It's going to be a little bit harder, but in the end, you can do 98 is divisible by 7. It's not going to be harder if you do 2. It's just going to be a little bit extra work to break it down. All right, so 7 times 14 is 98. And then I'm going to break down 14 even further. And that's all you can do. That, even though it's a big number, it ended up being pretty nice. 7 is prime, 7 is prime, 2 is prime. So let's write everything out. Oops. Sorry about that. 2 7s. 7 times 7. All right. You have a pair, so they break out. So you have the number 7 times the square root of 2. And that's your answer. All right, so even if you divided 98 by 2, you'd have 2 and 49. Break down 49 into 7 and 7. You get the same thing. So I guess it wouldn't be harder. It would just be some bigger numbers to deal with, I guess. All right, so that's exactly like the ones we did before. Now, this one is exactly the same, but there's a little twist at the end that I wanted to make sure that I covered, all right? 63. 9 and 6. 9 times 6 is 63. Break down 9 into 3 and 3. Those are prime. That's as far as you can go. 6 can be into 3 and 2. 2 times 3 is 6. So, broken down as far as we can. Let's write it out. It's already listed in the order I'd like to keep it in. Everything's multiplication because we're breaking it down into the factors. We have a pair of 3s. So they get out of the square root. They escape. You still have a square root of 3 underneath, and you still have a square root of 2. Now, the reason I wanted to, this is what I mean by a little different. It's the same process, but what do you notice? The 3 got out, a 3 did not, a 2 did not. We don't want to leave it like this. We want to put these two things back together. Anything underneath the square root can be put back together. Think about it this way. We took 63 apart into 9 and 6. We could put it back together into 63. We could go backwards. So that's kind of what we do here. The 3 stays out, and inside we're just going to take 2 times 3 is 6. Make it as simple as we can. Your answer should have only one number outside of the square root, one number inside of the square root. So if they don't escape and you have some square roots left over, put them back together. All right, a different type of problem. Hopefully you don't find it too complicated. Now, 2 square root of 14x. We finally have a variable in these problems. Hooray. And 12 square root of 14. Now, what do you notice? The first thing to notice is what's the difference? One has an x, sure. But outside, you have a 2 and a 12. 14s are the same. So the question is, how can we get this 12 or this 2 to be 12? We would have to multiply it times 6, right? 6 times 2 is 12. Because we want that 12 on the outside. We want them to be the same. This is the one we have to think about changing. One with the x. This is the one we have to change. Okay. So we want that 6 out in front. But what do you notice? The x is on the inside of the square root. So what number square rooted would give you 6? Because we want this inside. But in order to do the backward of it, we have to think about what square root is going to give us 6. What number is going to give us 6? So here is what it is. You have 2 square root of 14. We need another square root that's going to give us 6, and that's going to be 36. All right, because what we wanted is, what's the square root of 36? Well, it is 6. You have the 2, you have the 14. And there you go, 6 times 2 is 12. And they are the same, check mark. So what you need to think about is what's different? Well, the 2 becomes a 12, or the 2 needs to be the same as 12. 2 times 6 is 12. What perfect square is going to give us 6? Well, 36. So let's do the next one. Okay, so 3 and 18 are the things you want to focus on. The 22 underneath is already the same. So what number do we need to take 3 times to get 18? Well, it's going to be 6. So I didn't realize this is going to end up being the same x. So we want it to be 6 times 3, right? Well, what square root is going to give us 6? Well, you would need it to be the square root of 36. Because the square root of 36 is 6 times 3 gives us the 18. So it's an equal sign, so we need these to be exactly the same. It's just what x is going to make it so they are the same. And what you need to make sure, I didn't do it on the last one, but x is 30. We're putting a 36 into the square root, and that square root of 36 gives us the 6 on the outside that we want to multiply. All right, that's it, guys. Have a good day.